Honourable Mazzone.
Thank you, House Chairperson. State-owned entities pose a very serious risk to the fiscus, Finance Minister Tito Mboweni said. Allow me to quote from a section of the budget speech delivered earlier this year. Funding requests for SAA, SABC, Denel, Eskom, and other financially challenged state-owned enterprises have increased, with several requesting state support just to continue operating. Isn't it about time that the country asks the question, do we still need these enterprises? Mboweni asked the National Assembly. Indeed, Minister, do we still need these enterprises? Government guarantees to state companies are at more than 450 billion rand. That's just over $36 billion. This, according to the National Treasury data. The state's exposure to this increased by 64.5% in the past fiscal year, from 54.4% as companies drew in on their guarantees. According to a statement made by the South African Reserve Bank, and I quote again, financial stability centres around the ability of state-owned entities to roll over debt and achieve financial consolidation. Should state-owned entities fail to roll over the debt, the government would be liable and might not be able to honour such debt. The Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, announced in Parliament in June this year that a lender would pay the remaining 15% of salaries owing to Denel employees, as Denel was only able to pay 85% of its staff that month. This was merely a temporary bandage for an entity that, quite frankly, is on the brink of collapse. This unidentified lender is not a get-out-of-jail-free card, but a temporary reprieve. Today, I sat in on the Standing Committee on Appropriations. Chairperson of Eskom, Mr. Jabu Mabuza, said something that I found astonishing. He said, pray for luck to keep the lights on. This from an entity that has been hollowed out by state capture, and wait for it, has a debt of over 440 billion rand and counting. Now, someone said to me one day, you know, we're so used to talking about billions that we forget the concept of how much a billion is. Well, to put it in context, if you started counting the seconds now, it would take you over 32 years to count to 1 billion. Let that sink in. South Africa has hundreds of state-owned entities. Many of them are either completely dysfunctional, bankrupt, or frankly serve no purpose whatsoever other than the lining of the pockets of the connected few. Many of the hundreds of state-owned entities also duplicate functions and should simply not exist. They are sucking money from the fiscus and pose a great threat to the South African economy. From bailouts to guarantees, here's just a slight glimpse at the frightening state of state-owned entities. South African Airways debt, 21.7 billion rand. Denel's debt, 3 billion rand, with 2 bonds due in September totaling 2.7 billion. And Eskom's debt, 440 billion, 610 million. State-owned entities are archaic in their design. They should not be being used for economic development. It simply does not work. The economy should be growing through and supporting a free market system. This would give South Africans choice. It would give South Africans opportunity, and it would create a conducive environment for national and international investment. When the money is finished, the money is finished. It is very easy for billionaires to make bold statements that government employees' pension fund is taxpayers' money anyway. 3.5 million South Africans have worked diligently their whole lives as civil servants and now face the risk of utter destitution in their old age because the government wants their pensions to bail out failing state-owned entities. It is very easy to be a socialist with other people's money. It is very easy to have communist leanings when the millions of rands that you deal with are not your millions. The fact of the matter is this. It is our job to be the custodians of the South African coffers. Simple economics dictates that you cannot spend more than you have without dire consequences. You cannot grow an economy when you are held ransom by unions who cripple state-owned entities when they feel that their demands aren't met. You cannot grow the economy when the energy supply is not secure. You cannot grow the economy by pouring billions and billions of rand into failing entities. Now is not the time to throw money at the problem. Now is the time to trim the fat. We cannot afford to continue with the status quo, where a government spends billions on bailing state-owned entities instead of spending the money on job creation initiatives and service delivery. It is time to be pragmatic and to stop playing politics. It is time to set political ideologies aside. State-owned entities represent some of the biggest monopolies in the South African economy, and by conducting a comprehensive review, government would be providing citizens with a clear indication that they are willing to start the process of structural change to protect our economy from further financial loss. We simply cannot be sentimental about state-owned entities. The country is in crisis. It therefore requires urgent reforms and the absolute protection of pension funds. This is nothing more than the new potential state capture. And mark my words, this battle too shall be fought and it shall be won.
Honourable Lesoma.